Okay, this video is the second video for cognitive development. So we're going to take a look at the last two stages in cognitive development according to Piaget. So far we've looked at, in the last video, sensory motor and pre-operational thinking. In this video we're going to look at, first of all, concrete operational thinking. And concrete operational thinking starts with about 6 and goes through about 12. And this is the idea that children understand things that they can physically touch and physically manipulate. So I have a quick video to show you on this.
So first we're going to look at these two cups right here. Do you think there's the same amount of juice in this glass as there is in that glass? They're even? Okay. So we're going to take the juice from this glass and pour it into this one right here. Okay, so now we're going to look at this glass and that one. So do you think that there's more juice in this glass, more juice in this glass, or do you think that they have the same amount?
Same amount.
Okay, why do you think that they have the same amount?
Just because this is skinny doesn't mean it's not the same amount. It has the same amount of juice in it, but this one is just wider and this one's skinnier, but they have the same amount of juice in it.
Okay, so the point is that obviously this girl got that idea of conservation down. She understands how that operates. So what we're saying here is that you have somebody who can actually look at a specific example like that, and they understand that just because it has changed appearance doesn't mean that it has changed in quantity. So concrete operational children understand that. Another example, when I was first beginning teaching in Indiana, I actually subbed around quite a bit with elementary school, junior high, high school. But I always liked to do elementary school because, as a sub, because I actually got to do things. With the junior high and high school, you don't get to do anything as a sub. But one of the things that I saw as an example when I had to sub in an elementary school is that for math class, they oftentimes use manipulatives. So they would use these bears. I actually did find pictures of the bears that I used when I was subbing. But they would give out these bears and they would say, you know, they'd sit around all these kids in this circle, and every kid would have, for example, 5 bears. Okay, and there was a script that I had to read, and it would say, okay, 5 teddy bears go to the movies. 1 teddy bear goes to the bathroom. Another teddy bear goes to get some popcorn. And the children would actually move the teddy bears away. And then the teacher would ask, okay, how many teddy bears are left watching the movie? And the kids would actually be able to see, oh, 3, which is much easier than, for example, for a kindergartner or a first grader to think about 5 minus 2. And that's harder because they have to have manipulatives. Even if you just write it down, you'll see oftentimes kids using their hands and they're counting with their fingers. They need something concrete to count. Okay? This is the idea of concrete operational. They need something concrete in front of them. Another example, when I was growing up, I still remember this, when we were learning math, and some of you may have had this, some of you may not. We had touch points. So this is a picture that I found of actual touch points of just these 5 numbers. But for every number, there were specific points on the number that you're supposed to touch, and there was a particular amount depending upon whatever number. So obviously 3 has 3 touch points, 4 has 4 touch points, and so on and so on. The idea being that when you're working with math and you actually have the problem on the paper, so 3 plus 4, the student can actually go and touch 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So they can actually go and physically touch it and count it. Now this gets problematic when students rely on this to the extent of that they don't get that automatic quick math skills in them. My dad hated that my sister and I learned this math this way. My sister even says that she sometimes would fall back on this even as an older child, if it was something that, she couldn't do really quickly in her head, she would oftentimes revert back to touch points. So, but again, it's a concrete operational thing because you're actually physically touching the paper, touching the numbers, okay? Now, after about 12, we move into what we call formal operational thinking. With formal operational thinking, you are basically, Piaget believed this is the last stage, and the way you think does not change basically since 12. Now, you'll think deeper and more in depth and about higher, more complex problems and things after the age of 12, but he really did not believe that your overall thinking changed a whole lot. So I have a couple of video examples for this. So the first one,
It says, if you hit a glass with a hammer, the glass will break.
I knew that.
And then this one says, Don hit a glass with a hammer.
I knew that too.
So what happened to the glass?
It broke
It broke. Why did it break?
because the hammer's hard.
If you hit a glass with a feather, the glass will break.
No, it won't.
And this is the second rule. Don hit a glass with a feather. What happened to the glass?
Nothing.
Nothing happened. Why didn't anything happen?
Because the feather was soft.
First one says, if you hit a glass with a feather, the glass will break. And the second one, Don hit a glass with a feather. What happened to the glass?
It broke.
And why did it break?
Because the rule says if you hit a glass with a feather, it'll break. But if you hit a glass with a feather, it broke.
okay, so the first kid was definitely concrete operations. Second the girl was definitely formal operational thinking. The reason being is that with formal operational thinking, she can recognize that the experimenter was giving her a new rule. Okay, the boy in the first kid, the boy was working off from what he already knows about hammers and feathers. Okay, so he could not fathom in a world where a feather could break a glass. Okay, the girl, on the other hand, could think abstractly and based off from what the information and what the rules were according to what they were given to her. All right, second example I have for formal operational thinking is this.
The formal operational stage of cognitive development is reached when an adolescent begins to think abstractly and to reason hypothetically. When asked the hypothetical question, what if people had no thumbs? Pre-adolescent children like Jalur and Jenny respond much differently than adolescents do.
Because I have 4 fingers. I wouldn't be able to write or nothing.
You wouldn't be able to tell a person that they're like good and this
That's good.
and wouldn't be able to write really good. And you couldn't play thumb wrestling.
Adolescents are able to mentally picture this hypothetical situation, contrast it with reality, and produce a variety of conclusions regarding the implications of being without thumbs.
Man, I think the whole world would change, kind of. I know a friend of mine who's a lefty, and in 5th grade we were just shooting the breeze one day, and she said, you know, the whole world's made for righties. I said, what are you talking about, the whole world's made for righties? She said, well, door handles all open a certain way, tables are made a certain way, desks in school are all made for righties. You'll notice that when you get in, you can prop your right arm up, but not your left one. And sort of for the next week or so, I kept my eye out, and she was right. I mean, the whole world is sort of tailored to the majority, the righties. And so I think if we were to lose something as simple but critical as our thumb, the whole world would change. Maybe a bunch of little things, but all those little things would add up to something major, and I think the whole world would be different.
All right, so everybody looks at the second kid, the teenager there, and like, really? I wouldn't come up with that. But the teenager is representing of abstract thinking because he's actually thinking about, you know, what if this, then that. Whereas a lot of people may not do that if they're in concrete operational This also explains why, for example, when you get into middle school and high school, you're taking classes that are much more abstract. I mean, can you think about trying to teach a 10-year-old calculus? I mean, that's not a concrete thing. They can't touch it. It's very difficult for them to understand. Whereas formal operational thinking, you can think outside the box. You can think about things that are not concrete, that are not physical, and things that you can touch. All right, that's pretty much the it of Piaget. The last thing I want to hit with this video is Lev Vygotsky. Vygotsky, as you might imagine by his name, was a Russian. He was actually born the same year as Piaget. He died early, though. I believe it was due to tuberculosis. So his ideas were not as developed as Piaget, but he did have some interesting things that other psychologists have kind of taken and rolled with it, as you might say. So a couple things I wanted to point out with Vygotsky. First of all, Vygotsky believed that social interaction and culture also affect cognitive development. Piaget believed that everybody goes through those 4 stages that he outlined. Everybody goes through sensory motor, pre-operational, concrete operations, and formal operations. And everybody goes through it in that order, and everybody pretty much has cognitive development the same way. Vygotsky did not say that that's not true, but he did say that there are variations on that depending upon your social interaction as well as your culture. For example, in that last video, the teenager at the end, he was talking about his friend in 5th grade noticing that everything is made for righties. And that interaction with his friend where he started to think about it, you know what, you're right, everything is for righties. It changed that teenager's viewpoint, and because of that particular interaction, he was able to answer the question about what if you didn't have any thumbs a lot better than somebody who didn't have that interaction. So Vygotsky has some valid points where social interaction does affect your cognitive development as well as culture. The way your culture views things can also affect where you are even in Piaget stages. The other thing that Vygotsky pointed out was that language is also a huge part of cognitive development. He pointed out that you can scaffold and you can scale down things for younger children. This is a big thing in education right now with elementary school kids, trying to get them to think abstractly really before they're ready, according to Piaget. But Vygotsky said you could do this if you are providing assistance, if you're talking them through things. And what will happen is the adult will talk them through things, and then when the child is going through it by themselves later, they will internalize what the adult was talking them through. So, for example, there's Vygotsky, by the way, that's his picture. I was trying to include a picture of the psychologist, what they look like. For example, and a good example of Vygotsky's idea about language is that puzzles. Okay, children start being able to do puzzles around 18 months. And you can have a puzzle where it's just simple shapes, and they have to put the shape in the right hole. Okay, when working with an 18-month-old, when they're first getting a puzzle, they don't quite understand how it works. So the parent will talk them through this, and I've done this with my children, where you'll say, "Oh, you got to turn it. Okay, turn it, turn it. Oh, okay, great, goes right there." Okay. Now later, when my child goes and tries to do the same puzzle on their own, they will actually talk about it out loud. They'll say, "Turn it, turn it." Okay, and then at some point they will internalize that, and so then they will say it in their head. Same thing with reading. Okay, you first learn how to read, and you are going to sound out the letters with your parent, and then you'll sound out the letters out loud without your parent, and then eventually you'll do it in your head. Okay, Vygotsky said that's a very big process in language development with your cognitive development as well. All right, that's it. That's all I want to talk about with cognitive. Let me know if you have any questions.